Hi, today we are in the Hoyer Heights neighborhood, which is in the very upper part of northeast Minneapolis. We're in the upper part of a watershed that ultimately drains down through lots of different residential and industrial properties, commercial properties, as well as the Columbia Park and Golf Course before making its way down to the river. And so we worked closely with the city of Minneapolis over the last couple of years to install some tree trenches, which you see behind me. Tree trenches are a great stormwater management practice. And the idea is really to help manage some local flooding issues, improve stormwater management, add habitat and beauty to the neighborhood. So the way that the tree trenches work is there's curb cuts which bring water off of the street, and then the water flows through the soil and plants where it can then be taken up by tree roots and by deep-rooted native plants, and also filter down through the soil. This tree trench system has perforated pipe installed underneath it, so any water that's not taken up by the plant roots or held in the soil for the trees goes down into that perforated pipe and then into the stormwater system. But it gets cleaned by moving through the soil, which pulls out contaminants before it gets into the stormwater system. Maintenance on these tree trenches is a little different from your average lawn maintenance on a regular boulevard. It doesn't really take much more time, but it is important to know that there's some different things that you want to do to make sure that these tree trenches are as functional and beautiful for as long as possible. So we're producing a series of videos that will show you how to take care of your tree trenches. The first thing that we're going to do when we perform maintenance on our tree trench here is we're going to think about how it's supposed to function, because the basic idea of doing maintenance on something like this is to think about how it's supposed to work and look to see if there's anything that's preventing it from working that way. So we're going to start with the inlet, which is the area that the water is directed to flow off of the street and into the tree trench. In the case of this inlet, we've got a curb cut here, and then we've got a pre-treatment structure, which is designed to pull out dirt and debris before that stormwater flows into the tree trench. We want to get that stuff out so that it doesn't clog up the soil in the tree trench and prevent the water from soaking in. Some of the inlets also just look like this and don't have pre-treatment structures. And in either case, it's important to make sure that they're clear whether the pre-treatment structure is there or not. So I'm going to go up here to this one, and I'm going to clean it out, and I'm just going to look and see what's in there. I just see some dirt and some sticks and things like that have come in with the stormwater. And I'm going to use a broom and a dustpan. You might want to have a trowel or a shovel or a rake, depending on what you have in your inlet structure. The city will come by periodically to clean these out. But if you notice yours clogged up, it's a great thing to do to come out and clean it out so that we know that the tree trench will be functioning properly. And we also know that the water will be able to flow in there and not create small flooding issues in the street. So I'm just going to get down here, and I'm going to start sweeping up some of the sand and dirt. And I'm just going to dispose this in my garbage bag here. If you have a lot of sticks or leaves or things like that, you may want to separate that out and put it into a yard waste bag so that you can dispose of it all properly. So another really important part of maintaining this tree trench is to remove weeds. The plants that were chosen to be planted in these tree trenches were specifically chosen for their ability to absorb stormwater and take up nutrients, and also for their pollinator benefit and for their beauty. They're chosen to be blooming at all different times of year so that it looks great all the time. And so we really want to support the growth and establishment of those plants by taking out the weeds which ultimately compete with them. When I come into my rain garden or my tree trench to look for weeds, I can use the plant list that's on our website at mwmo.org to figure out what's supposed to be here. And if I see things that aren't supposed to be here, I'm just going to assume that they're weeds and that I should pull them. So right now, looking around, I see some of the things that are on the plant list that are supposed to be here. Over here, we've got lots of pollinators on this Joe Pye weed. We also have a blazing star. These are plants that are supposed to be here, and we really want to help them survive. I also see things that aren't supposed to be here. And there's lots of ways that I can tell, in addition to the fact that they're not on my plant list, that they shouldn't be here. I'll see them competing with or taking over some of the plants that are on the plant list. I have I see a volunteer tree right over here, so pulling that out will be really important. Also some other things that are taking over some of the plants on my plant list. I see this one right here, which is taking over my purple coneflower, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that. When you come out to do weeding, you may wanna bring trowels and weed pullers, but you can also just see if things are easy enough to pull by hand. So if I pull this one out, one thing that's gonna be really important is to try to shake as much of the soil off of the roots as you can. And then also to replace or put the mulch back over the soil, because one of the benefits of this mulch is it holds the soil down, but it also protects the soil from weeds. It helps it so that the seeds that fall off of weeds can't as easily get into the soil and start to grow. So replacing that, putting it back where it was, is a really important part of doing this maintenance. Now I'm gonna just put this in a yard waste bag and make sure that you're always disposing of this sort of stuff in the way that your city recommends. So another weed that I see right here, in looking at my planting plan and my plant list carefully, this one just isn't in there, so I know that this has to go. I also see that it's taking over this plant that is on my plant list and is supposed to be there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and work on pulling this out as well. Once again, getting as much of the soil off of the root as possible, replacing the mulch, and disposing of it. With things like trees, sometimes you need to actually use a tool so you can get some leverage. Trees tend to have really strong roots, and so I recommend getting a weed puller or some sort of weed wrench to help you pull things like this out. Pulling trees when they're really small is a really good idea because they will be much easier to remove. If you're not sure if something is a weed or not, you can also let it grow a little bit to just see how it looks and if it looks like anything that's on the plant list for this space. And if it's not, go ahead and pull it. We hope that these videos are helpful for you in learning how to maintain your tree trenches or other stormwater best management practices. We plan to continue to post videos year-round to help you maintain your rain garden or tree trench as the seasons change. If you have questions, please leave them for us in the comments and visit our website at mwmo.org for more information.